All right, welcome to Frontline. We're back in New York at 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin with some breaking news from President Trump on Iran, putting Tehran on notice after the regime hit Israel and Kuwaiti infrastructure this weekend. Also, Trump saying that he will know in about a week if Iran's representative, whatever one is living at the time, will be able to work with Americans. More on this shortly. Plus, 12 tons of Kit Kat bars were stolen in Europe. The thieves ran off with the truck transporting 413,793 candy bars. Anybody know where J.B. Pritzker was this weekend? And firefighters in Nebraska are still fighting the largest wildfires in the state's history. The largest fires are contained right now, but 3 still remain burning. In total, nearly 700,000 acres have been burned, threatening livestock and even affecting beef prices. But first, welfare warriors, freaks, washed-up song artists, teachers' unions, they all assembled to reinforce their No Kings message. Let's do this. Okay, good to be back in New York, folks. But I did get some new cowboy boots this weekend at Boot Barn. Check that one out. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, professors at various war colleges, Annapolis, West Point, if there was ever a worry about who the opposition would be in a civil war, I give you these performers. And they did it. There's no kings today. These are the people resisting Trump. These are the people that would protest Trump if he cured cancer. But just to show you the brain trust here, these protests had people in America protesting for no kings while waving communist flags. This is a real thing. Is there like a deport to North Korea button somewhere in the White House that we can just, the Dunning-Kruger effect, full display. The dumber you are, the smarter you think you are. One of the greatest tragedies of this far left swing, though, is the downfall of Bruce Springsteen. Oh, it's just terrible to see. Proof that liberalism will literally make you worse at whatever you do. But it actually got, I don't know if it's better or worse, but this guy in LA got a lesson in physics. Probably why knights like 1,000 years ago also used horses, because they're stronger than people. This guy here, he gets kicked in the privates by a horse leg. Like, this is what happens when you get in the way of a horse. And all the libs making this out to be like, oh, it's almost murder for some kid who actually, he charged the horse. The video is great. So just like, relax, dude. I think the horse just kind of tapped him and he was crying like a baby. But I'm old enough to remember when during COVID, Canadian horses charged protesters. They actually trampled one woman, and then immediately the government dropped the investigation because it was concluded that, oh, she wasn't that injured and she should have gotten out of the way. And libs cheered because it was someone protesting COVID mandates then. Right. Yeah, and those same people with the purple hair screaming about what the horrible dictator they think Trump is are the same ones back in 2012 that said they wanted Barack Obama to be a king. You see how dumb this whole thing is, folks? It's just like endless entertainment for me, but it's really stupid. The whole movement is just fake outrage by people with nothing better to do on a Saturday. You could try anything, like golf. In some of these people's cases, a jog wouldn't hurt. It's also funny that the people who said Trump would destroy America are literally the ones setting fire to and breaking stuff in American cities. It's like nothing to see here, just mostly peaceful protests, telling reporters like this Breitbart guy that they're going to kill them. Out in LA, spray painting, kill your local ICE agent on the side of a federal building. By the way, threats against ICE are up like 8,000% since the self-proclaimed peaceful left started this whole movement against ICE. And I love how the liberal media, just like they did with BLM, they're now, wow, these are organic, peaceful protesters. Remember that one? That was great. Yeah, this is totally organic. Just thousands of random people who automatically know how to make complex person formations with thousands of people. It takes, I don't know, halftime shows, weeks or months to practice. Yeah, I'm sure it's just totally organic, not planned at all. Of course, they aren't organic. Sure, some of these people may have just wandered in there because they have enough irrational hatred towards Trump to waste their entire day just screaming at the sky. But who do you think funded the flyer or the social media post that person saw that notified them about the protest? Here you go. Washington Times, quote, The funding and influence behind the protests include a network of about 500 groups with an estimated $3 billion in combined annual revenue. One of the people behind it that we told you about, Neville Roy Singman, out of China. The People's Forum admitted to receiving over $20 million in funding from Neville Roy Singman, wealthy U.S. expat living in Shanghai with long documented ties to the CCP. Oh, by the way, his wife is also the one who chartered that flight to Cuba with Code Pink. They stayed at a 5-star resort, and then they threw a music concert for people in Cuba who don't have food. But, whoa, Trump bad. In case it hasn't hit you how dumb this whole movement is, they came out with one of these also in Great Britain over the weekend, in a land that actually has a king. They actually have had one for over 1,200 years, protesting Donald Trump 3,000 miles away under the banner of no kings. Like, nobody organizing that protest in England was like, better go back to the drawing board on this one. No? Honestly, in a country banning dogs because Muslim immigrants don't like them, where they're doling out, I don't know, £1 billion or like the British dollars a month to immigrants and migrants, some of them illegal, while their tax base, native-born Britons, are getting literally taxed to death. I don't know, maybe British citizens should take like a page out of America's book when Britain tried to tax us too much 250 years ago. Oh, we got a good segment on taxes come up and who pays them here in America. Just stick around for that one. But someone should teach them about that, the whole revolution thing, because they get tired of their government. And since the teachers union, speaking of teachers, apparently they're participating in these protests too. That's a good use of their time. Randi Weingarten, who has no kids of her own, she's married to a woman in charge of our teachers unions that teaches our kids. Instead of addressing the failing test scores in Philadelphia, where she attended this weekend, that version of the protest, which is at the bottom half of cities ranked nationwide on education levels, with a 13% high school dropout rate, she imparted this wisdom on us.
No kings today and freedom tomorrow. No kings today, change the country tomorrow.
What? Okay. Again, her tenure as the head of the teachers union, America's literacy rate used to be like one of the highest. It's now slipped to below 40 while she's been around. Oh, look, Jimmy Kimmel was there too, if you ever had a question of where he stood on anything. But the best one was my favorite. Mazie Hirono tweeting out, quote, Donald Trump is not and never will be and has never been a king. Hashtag no kings. Okay. First, someone should tell her that Elon updated the algorithm. You don't actually have to use the hashtag anymore, which is funny because 50% of the demographic in America still sees that as a pound sign. But yeah, we know Donald Trump is not a king, lady. And you want to know how I know? Because the first thing a king would do would be to crack down on people protesting the king, which he didn't do. But this might have been one of those times that Mazie was just so smart that we wouldn't understand. Remember this?
We Democrats know so much, that is true. And we have to kind of tell everybody how smart we are. And so we have a tendency to be very left-brain. And we think that everybody makes their decisions on analysis.
Wow. Dunning-Kruger effect. And while all these libs got together and like high-fived about how much of a freak show they put on, tell me what this accomplishes besides making them look absolutely stupid to most of America. And the blue cities they protest in, the states that they're in absolute shambles. You have no policies, and they have nothing but bring poverty because of their policies. Your entire political platform is like, oh, look at how bad Trump is. That's like their pitch in the midterms. Why is this an even course? I mean, who I'm really concerned about is actually the people donating to the groups that fund this. Imagine, like, you get a flyer, you donate 20. Hey, what did my donation go to? And there's a person in a wheelchair walking around a dressed up Trump figurine on a leash. It's such a grip. And it's crazy to think, though, that these elections in this country are pretty close to a 50-50 proposition. Could you imagine for just 1 second if Republicans actually passed the Save America Act, we defunded all the NGO grants and fraud that makes their way to these types of protests or to Somalia, defunded the Department of Education that gives other money to far-left campus projects that breed these type of people? If Republicans actually did what they said they were going to do, these elections wouldn't even be close. But instead, we've got the third string of the JV freak show influencing an entire political party like this banana.
now I'm going to sound like an idiot. So we have the, oh my God, I can't believe, like, I'm put on. All right, we have the Trump.
Yeah, that person didn't even know why they were there. The guy in that video trying to figure out what the heck that banana was protesting, founder of Surge Philly, Frank Scales. Frank, you asked a legitimate question and walked for like a solid quarter mile and couldn't figure out why she was there.
Yeah, and I ask a lot of people that same question. Why are you out here protesting? And a lot of people cannot answer that question. It's very alarming that we have people dressed as bananas who can't, explain why they're dressed as bananas. If I left my house dressed as a banana, I would have my talking points nailed down.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want to look stupid dressed as a fruit.
Well, you got to pick your struggle. You're dressed as a banana. You at least have to be able to say why.
Yeah, exactly. And this trans rep thinks that they're protesting, quote, fascist thugs. Watch this.
I want you to remember when someone asks what the trans lady was yelling about at the No Kings rally. You can tell them that these fascist thugs in Washington, they are actually not the gatekeepers of our shared liberation.
I don't even know what that means. And also, they're the ones waving communist flags.
Yeah. These people act like they're against authoritarianism. They stated that these protests were to oppose authoritarianism. They're not worried about authoritarianism because they're the ones who tried to force everybody to take a vaccine just a few short years ago.
Yep.
What they're worried about is not being the ones in power. That's all they care about.
Right. Well, the other thing for me personally, nothing makes me want to go no kings harder more than people chanting death to America. Watch this.
Yeah.
Long live the Intifada! Death to the Zionist entity! Death to America and death to Dan Zimmerman!
So again, still following me.
I mean, if I was a king, I would just drone strike that area.
Right. And when I was at that protest, they followed me. They pushed me. They even spit chocolate milk all over my hoodie. And they did that because they didn't want me recording what they were doing and what they were saying. So who are the authoritarians? Who are the kings? Because they're assaulting a journalist who is just trying to document what they're doing. They did that the whole time I was there while they chant death to America. It was disgraceful.
Well, this is why we have A10 warthogs. Frank, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Let's bring in Chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, Kentucky Representative James Comer. Sir, you guys actually are making efforts to get to the bottom of who's funding all this stuff and what you can do about it.
Yeah, we're trying to get people in to go on the record so we can build up a case that will actually win in court. That's what we do on the Oversight Committee. We can't arrest anyone, but we can have criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. And this is a huge issue. We've got budget deficits. We've got these liberal groups that are using taxpayer dollars to try to destroy our country. And yet the majority of members of Congress just turn a blind eye to it because it's too much trouble to try to halt funding for everything else to try to identify a fraction of that, which is going to those NGOs. It's been real frustrating, but we're not going to stop. We've got a good committee, and we know the problem's there, and we're going to keep fighting till we see some accountability.
Yeah, well, you guys are handing all it over to the DOJ, and the DOJ is bringing it about as far as a lead balloon, so we'll see what happens there. But you also announced an investigation into rampant taxpayer fraud in California's hospice programs. Billions of dollars. You wrote a letter to Gavin Newsom saying that he knew about the state audit reports of hospice fraud for at least 4 years and didn't do anything about that. This would drive me insane, sir.
Yeah, hospice is a program everyone supports. No, and everyone uses hospice in their deepest, darkest time of need. And to find out that billions of dollars of fraud has occurred in hospicing in California is sickening to any taxpayer. But we're zeroing in on one county, Los Angeles County, where 18% of the total amount of money spent on hospice in America went to this one county. Under further review, there were no guardrails. You and I could form an LLC today and buy a UPS post office box and get licensed within 24 hours in the state of California and start billing hospice for fake patients like the Leering Center in Minnesota. So we're zeroed in on this. Gavin Newsom is always a day late and a dollar short. He's come in and said, okay, we're going to put guardrails in. Well, he's known about it for 4 years and hasn't done anything about it. Now, I'm optimistic on this welfare fraud because we're seeing people convicted. We're seeing the Bondi Department of Justice in Minnesota now prosecuting people, going in front of grand juries, getting people convicted. We're going to see the same thing in California. So we're working with the Department of Justice, working with Vice President J.D. Vance, who's just been placed in charge of a national fraud task force. And I really think that in these fraud cases in these states, we're going to see some accountability.
It's crazy to me. In a place like California, it's easier to build a hospice center and get licensed for that than it is to get a lawful gun permit.
Yeah, that's right.
Kash Patel has moved to release the old files on Congressman Eric Swalwell over his, I got to say, alleged sleeping with a Chinese spy, Fang Fang. Sir?
Yeah, that's great. And I so strongly support that. That the American people deserve to know the truth about that. He never was held accountable. The mainstream media never covered it. The conservative media outlets covered it. But now that he's, a potential gubernatorial candidate of the biggest state in America, the American people deserve to know. And Kash Patel's doing what Donald Trump campaigned on doing. He's being transparent. The media wants all the Epstein documents released, even though there are class action lawsuits ongoing, even though many of these victims have signed non-disclosure agreements. But they don't want Eric Swalwell's FBI files disclosed. I mean, it's crazy. I support Kash Patel doing that, and I'm glad he's doing it. I hope the American people see what we're dealing with here with Eric Swalwell. Also, if you have a congressman on foreign affairs committees and access to intel allegedly sleeping with a Chinese spy, I kind of want to know about him. Congressman James Comer, keep up the good work, sir. Thank you.
All right, coming up, gas prices are up, but for how long? We're going to break down why they're quick to rise, but also they could be quick to fall if something pops off. We'll get that in just a bit. But are we on the road to ground troops in Iran? This is a sketchy subject for me. President Trump says they're all alternatives. Marco Rubio says it's not necessary. So why is the legacy media just reporting that it's basically going to happen? Team guys, Rob O'Neill, Mike Sarraille, next.
Donald Trump's second presidency is changing America. Now you need to watch Rob Schmitt tonight on President Trump's next big move. Then tune into Rob Finnerty taking on Trump's critics. President Trump says he watches Newsmax. You should too. Download our Newsmax app to watch us anytime, anywhere. Millions are making the switch to Newsmax. Be one.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone. Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
Why go on Roe? Because 1 in 4 guys experience ED.
Guys, connect with a provider to find treatment that could be right for you, like fast-acting dissolvables or daily gummies. If 1 in 4 guys deal with ED,
then 1 in 4 guys should go on Roe.
Total Beats, America's best-selling Beats brand, is available at Walmart. Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews contain a key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. Take control of your health. Head to Walmart and get Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews today.
And now here's Chris Cunahan with the Leaf Filter Gutter Report and what changing weather conditions can mean for your home. Chris?
Our patented leaf filter technology keeps your gutters clog-free year-round. No matter where you live, no matter the climate. Locally trained professionals will clean, repair, and install the Leaf Filter Gutter Protection System. Leaf Filter guarantees clog-free gutters for the life of your home. Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
Hey y'all, so I just downloaded the Experian app because I wanted to check my FICO score, but it does so much more. This thing shows you your FICO score, you can get your credit card recommendations, and it shows you ways to save money.
Do so much more than get your FICO score. Download the Experian app now.
What the hell are we paying NATO for? Our so-called allies are refusing to assist us in our efforts in Iran. The one time we asked for help, they demanded help for Ukraine, specifically in regards to the Strait of Hormuz. We just want a little bit of help here, which affects them more than us. Germany said, well, it's not our war. France says that they'll never take part in an operation to free the strait in the current situation. Greece is the same thing. They're too busy drinking wine. Italy won't send ships because it doesn't want to enter the war. Spain is explicitly being uncooperative. The UK is now allowing us to use the bases but rebuff the Hormuz assistance because it's not our NATO mission. Why do we bother? We provide like 2/3 of NATO's funding. Check out this chart. We're providing $980 billion. That's almost $1 trillion in total defense spending combined with Canada and Europe. They only spend $512, all of them together. Allies like that, like, who needs enemies during conflict like this? Maybe the next time they call, we won't be there. Now, there are reports that if U.S. ground troops enter, Israel is now reportedly saying it might not participate in that. Yet, the U.S. is continuously seeking a peaceful resolution as Israel continues striking infrastructure. I think it's time to ask the question, are the goals of the U.S. and Israel starting to conflict? And if so, does it or should it change our mission? And the leftist media is manufacturing this confusion about objectives in the mission. Thankfully, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is out there. He just dropped the mic on this one.
Here they are. You should write them down. Number 1, the destruction of their Air Force. Number 2, the destruction of their Navy. Number 3, the severe diminishing of their missile launching capability. And number 4, the destruction of their factories so they can't make more missiles and more drones to threaten us in the future. All of this so that they can never hide behind it to acquire a nuclear weapon.
Stephanopoulos should write that down. Fellow team guys, Rob O'Neill, one of the dudes who smoke-checked bin Laden, and Mike Sarraille, Chief Talent Officer at Overwatch Mission Critical. Rob, I'm looking at this and I'm like, you know what, NATO, the heck with you guys. We'll go at it alone. Let's open the strait, just turn the coast into a parking lot, and everything will be fine.
That's what I'm saying. And it's great to be on it with a couple of team guys, too, because I have a weird sense we're probably thinking in the same direction. It's not like we're asking them to send troops in or even send missiles in. We're just asking them, hey, maybe some escorts through the Straits of Hormuz. And that's more of a just bringing your daughter to work day. It's nice to have them. They can color, pretend they're doing stuff. We don't need them. This whole thing's a big global shift in alliances. We've let NATO tag along since we saved them the second time. I mean, I'm kicking back as a veteran. I'm just happy to see Germany doesn't want to go to war for a change.
Yeah, exactly. Mike, the issue here, though, boots on the ground. Trump said it's not something that he's interested in. I said early on it wasn't part of the plan, and therefore I'm not supporting it because it ends up being the never-ending thing. It's the creeping gradualism. But listen to this.
I just have lots of alternatives. We have tremendous numbers of ships over there. We don't need them all because of the power. Look, I would say we're just like we're ahead of schedule on the ballroom. In a much bigger way, we're ahead of schedule with Iran. We're weeks ahead of schedule.
So, Mike, is it all posturing to force them to the table to negotiate, or is he actually prepared to do this?
First off, Carl, I just want to say one of us is not wearing a tie. Just want to point that out. But to
I have to. Otherwise, I would not wear a tie. It's literally I have to.
Noted.
I'll say this. This is coercive negotiations or diplomacy.
Yeah.
He is putting as many options forward as he can. Now, is he even posturing for a 2003, road to Tehran, old Iraq-style invasion? Absolutely not, because most likely what will happen, Iranian soldiers will take their uniforms off, throw on civilian clothes, blend in with the populace, and it'll become irregular warfare that will bog us down. But does he have the option with Marines, the 82nd Airborne and Special Operations, to do limited raids, like take Karg Island or hit coastal defenses like Bandar Abbas, Keshem, He can. And so he has that option. And why wouldn't you put it forward? And, for Tehran, they're staring down the barrel of real consequences with this amount of options for the president.
Yeah, I want to give you guys each about 45 seconds on these next two. Trump talks about, the alternatives to this. Rubio says objectives can be achieved without ground troops. But, Rob, you've got these anonymous leakers coming from the Pentagon that are saying, we're preparing for ground war. It's like, dude, this differs from everything. And why would you expose battle plans?
Right, and it totally differs too, because we're in an environment now. Boots on the ground doesn't mean an invasion by the third ID. It could be a tier 1 unit going in there to grab, 1,000 pounds of uranium that's licking its chops to come snag me. It could be Marines on the ground, anti-drone stuff for the ships going in.
Yeah.
Boots on the ground might be boots on the ground, but it doesn't need to be. This is the way we've always done it. We've got a president who wants to beat someone till he wins. We have the troops that can do it.
Which, by the way, we're spending more energy right now trying to hold the Marines back from going in on their own. But Mike, real quick, there's talk of Saudi Arabia using a 40-year-old pipeline now to bypass the Strait of Hormuz at 7 million barrels a day. This could change the entire global oil market.
Basically pumping out into the Red Sea to the ports out there. Guys, I think this is the future. If we can get Iran so degraded to the point where the Straits of Hormuz can be secured, but we're also redirecting oil just to remove them from the equation, you've got the potential for a completely different Middle East where multinational corporation like risk appetite increases to invest in the Middle East, and it becomes a tech.
Yeah, no, it's going to be big moves here. Rob, Mike, pleasure as always. Put a tie on next time, Rob. Actually, you know what? Don't. You stay you. All right, coming up. Well, as we just talked about, the Trump administration doesn't want this conflict with Iran to turn into an endless war. So when are we going to see some relief at the pump? We're breaking down how and why the rising oil prices next.
You know Rob Finnerty. He's smart, bold, and stands strong for your values. Rob is fighting for you. Watch Finnerty weeknights only on Newsmax.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
The grind catches up with everyone, even me. That's why I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric. It helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Hey, I just got a text from my sister. You remember Rick, her neighbor?
Sure. He's the 76-year-old guy who still runs marathons, right?
Sadly, not anymore.
What? You mean...
Mm-hmm. Just like that.
Wow. So sudden. We're not about to have the we need life insurance conversation again, are we?
No, we're having the we're getting coverage so we don't have to worry about it conversation.
So you're calling about the $9.95 a month plan from Colonial Penn?
I am. We put it off long enough. We are getting that $9.95 plan today.
Is it time for you to call about the $9.95 plan? I'm Jonathan from Colonial Penn Life Insurance Company. Sometimes we just need a reminder not to take today for granted. It could be the death of someone you know or a health scare. That's why today could be a great day to call for free information about Colonial Penn's $9.95 plan. If you're age 50 to 85, you can get guaranteed acceptance whole life insurance starting at just $9.95 a month. There are no health questions, so you can't be turned down for any health reason. This is permanent coverage. Just pay your premiums for lifelong security. The $9.95 plan is Colonial Penn's #1 most popular whole life plan. Options start at just $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate can never go up. It's locked in for life. Don't put it off. Take the first easy step. Call today for free information. And you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. So call now.
Call 1-800-601-9997 for your free information and free gift. That's 1-800-601-9997. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-601-9997. 1-800-601-9997. Call now.
Hello, Colonial Penn?
We understand, we hear you, we see you. We are fully tracking this short-term fluctuation in oil and in diesel prices. And that's why the president and the administration have continually announced robust actions to provide stability in the global energy market. This regime can no longer control the world's free flow of energy through the Strait of Hormuz, which is something the administration continues to tackle day by day.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt answering the question a lot of people are asking: when are we going to see gas prices come down? Because this could, actually, it will affect the midterms. Hey, look, it's a valid point. If we're energy independent, why are our oil prices rising? Let me break this down for you guys. Even though the U.S. is technically energy independent, meaning we could theoretically move things around and sustain energy within ourselves, and so if we were cut off from the rest of the world, we remain part of the global system because it's an exchange. America is good at refining thick crude oil from places like Venezuela and Canada, but we're not great at refining the shale oil that we produce, like through fracking. We produce a lot of that too. Also, when the world trades on the US dollar, it becomes a global market, and the world's oil exchanges on the dollar. Think about that. And the more, now than ever, especially with Russia trading on the dollar, 3 major oil markets. You got the WTI, which is what we use generally, trading at about $104 a barrel at close today. Brent crude, Middle East, which is Middle Eastern centric, $116. And then you have the Dubai crude, that's between $130 and $150 per barrel. Notice how the American markets are the lowest. That's because of the energy independence and the strong dollar, now that Trump has crushed trading on the BRICS currency too. So yes, oil prices are temporarily up. We are a lot better off than basically everybody else, but this can be fixed in a reasonable time frame. Business and market analyst Seth Denson and CEO of Open the Books, John Hart. All right, Seth, how fast could this get fixed realistically?
It's going to take some time, Carl. Things go up fast, they come down slow, and you hit the nail on the head on the way that this is a global market. And we oftentimes will think about energy, specifically in what we put in our cars or what we heat our homes or cool things with. The reality is it's in everything. And so when you cut off supply on a global market, it's clothing, it is medicine, it is you name it. It's energy, and 20% of the global's capacity coming through the strait, it's going to take some time.
Yeah. John, I want to talk a little bit about money and how the dollar moves around. Let's do taxes now. This is your bailiwick, okay? Right. Then this is also why I don't trust the government. See, back in my home state of Connecticut, Democrats used a, quote, meal and beverage tax with the promise that the money would then go directly back to the cities and towns where it was collected. But instead, they just reportedly raised $500 million since 2019 and then diverted every penny into the general fund and spent it on all kinds of stupid stuff.
Yeah, Carl, I mean, that's what happens when money is taxed as it goes into a big bathtub. So the argument you had a great explanation of how energy markets work is that we have a system where we're part of the global exchange. But the global exchange for government is you put a dollar in that does not necessarily go to that purpose. Right. In fact, it usually just goes to the broad general fund. Even when money is, quote, directed to a certain purpose, it goes into a giant slush fund. And that's why you have $39 trillion in debt. We're on an unsustainable fiscal course, and our country's insolvent is because politicians in Washington are not responsible with how they spend taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. No, it's shocking to me. And here's another one. Here's another financial genius, Mamdani, who said that he's going to tax white people more. Well, actually, there is, Seth, a lot of data to suggest that white people are actually basically considered tax cattle. This guy, Charlie Smirkley, put it together on his Twitter account. He says, according to the New York City Housing Authority, the NYCHA, the census data, the IRS, and ACS, white New York City households pay approximately $54 billion in combined taxes, but only receive $15.5 billion back from the Public Housing Authority. While let's use white people as the index of 1. Here is the benefit that he calculated received per tax dollar. So white are a net negative benefit. We only take about 0.3% or 0.3 cents of every dollar that we contribute. But using white as the baseline there, as 1, Asians take 7.5% as much. Blacks take 61 times as much. Hispanics, 67 times as much in New York.
Well, I think, listen, the tax system is a redistribution system. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. And maybe Mondavi would get involved and support a fair tax, since he's all about fairness and outcomes. Then a fair tax would mean that everybody pays the same regardless of their income. It's a percentage of income. Maybe he'll get on board with that.
Yeah. John, what do you think about this?
Yeah, Carl, look, our unfunded liabilities as a country right now are $193 trillion. So when we hear people say, we're just going to tax our way out of it, we just need to tax billionaires more. Well, Carl, we only have the net worth of all billionaires in the world is about 20 trillion. So in other words, all the special forces, your friends could round up all the billionaires, take all their money, and we'd still be, we need to raise 7 times that amount or more to pay just our unfunded liability. So it's ridiculous, this idea that we're going to tax our way to prosperity.
By the way,
making rich people poor doesn't make more poor people richer.
Yeah, and by the way, if we took all that money from the rich people, there'd be nothing left to invest, and the economy would stagnate and fail.
Exactly.
Seth, John, appreciate it.
Thanks, Carl.
I hate taxes. All right, coming up, AOC reportedly misusing campaigns funds for personal expenses. Looks like this time she's got to get off her high horse, dare I say. All that. Culture Clash next.
It's our America. We built it. Courage, freedom. Millions go to Newsmax when they need to know. Start today on the free Newsmax app. Newsmax is real news for real people.
The crisis inside Ukraine has reached a catastrophic level, with the elderly Jews pushed to the very limit.
Go inside. She's freezing cold. There's no electricity, no heat, no water. Winter is now a weapon of war, used against the elderly, the mothers, and the young children.
They've been lined up here for hours. These are precious people who are hungry, and they have nothing. If someone doesn't do something soon, a humanitarian disaster is coming. So many Jewish people who are just waiting for someone to care enough to pick up the phone.
Fears are growing that without an emergency, full-scale response, thousands will die this winter.
The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews needs your $25 gift now to help rush a winter survival food box of emergency food for elderly Jews and families in Ukraine. Time is critical. Please give now.
They've felt the shaking of missiles. These are people who have already endured so much suffering and disaster.
The fellowship has been here and across the former Soviet Union for decades, but the need has never been more urgent.
Taking out power, taking out water, simple water to drink. We're talking about the difference between life or death. Christian, Jew, standing shoulder to shoulder, saying, we're here to heal, we're here to help.
Your gift of only $25 helps rush a winter survival food box filled with life-saving emergency food for elderly Jews and families in Ukraine who are struggling daily to stay warm and fed. Please call or go online while there is still time.
She's cleaning the shower. They're cleaning the shower. Doesn't look like it, right? Wet and Forget Shower does all the work for you. Wet and Forget is the once-a-week shower cleaner that lets you go live life. Rinsing? Forget it. Scrubbing? Forget it. There's a reason Wet and Forget Shower has over 40,000 5-star reviews. Wet and Forget Shower is a bleach-free, quick and easy once-a-week spray that goes to work on contact, giving you back what matters most, your free time. Don't forget to get yours at a retailer near you.
To a hacker, your tax return isn't just paperwork, it's a gold mine. Your social security number and bank data are their biggest payday of the year. Old antivirus software can't keep up. You need PCmatic. Our default deny technology blocks every single threat that hasn't been pre-approved. If we don't know it, we block it. Secure your return right now. Buy PCmatic antivirus and we will give you PCmatic VPN for free. American-made security for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Visit PCmatic.com.
Support your long-term health with Fatty 15, the science-backed, award-winning Pure C15 supplement.
Fatty 15 is reversing aging at the cellular level, and I know it's doing what I want it to do, which is improve longevity and wellness.
Discover more at fatty15.com.
Breaking news, folks. This is going to fire up the libs. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has signed a bill officially renaming Palm Beach International Airport to the Donald J. Trump International Airport. I was hoping it was King Donald Trump Airport. That would have really lost it. But it's going to take effect July 1. All right. You may have heard about this, but Christine Jones was gunned down by a convicted felon in Madison, Wisconsin this past week. Now, the alleged killer worked with Jones, was fired, and then allegedly at this time slashed her tires. Now the suspect, Diamond Wallace, blamed Jones for getting fired and had threatened her in the past. Nothing was done. But the reason the legacy media ignored this story is because Wallace reportedly targeted Jones because, he was saying she was racist and a Trump supporter. Just the reverse situation, and the left would have absolutely lost their mind. This has been wall-to-wall on every single liberal network. Republican strategist Cliff Maloney and Daily Caller reporter Ashley Brasfield. Ashley, I mean, if the roles had been reversed.
Yeah, so is this classified as a hate crime is my question in this case. This is a black woman that said that her coworker was racist and it's because she liked Donald Trump that she gunned her down, basically, and then the indictment. So I guess that's where we're at now these days. And I don't understand why this isn't classified as a hate crime. And, the case of the DOJ here.
Yeah, well, we'll see what Harmeet Dillon does about this. All right, this is actually a really funny one, Cliff. When you donate to a congressional campaign, you would expect it to go to, I don't know, like Facebook ads or campaign expenses. But in AOC's case, Special K, it literally went to ketamine. A watchdog group filed a federal complaint alleging that AOC used campaign funds to pay nearly $19,000 to a psychiatrist for what her campaign reported as leadership training and consulting. It turns out the psychologist has never been known to specialize in any of those things, but instead offers ketamine therapy.
I mean, this is like fiction, Carl, right? You cannot write these things, but for AOC to be spending this type of money on ketamine, I mean, I had to read, when you guys sent me the story and said, hey, we might want to talk about this, I had to reread the story 3 times to believe it.
Yeah.
The Democrats, it is like a clown car circus, and AOC is leading the way.
Ashley, we did some simple math here. AOC's average donor donates about $20, so that means 950 people had to donate to pay for AOC's ketamine therapy. I'm here to report that it didn't do anything because she's still a Democrat.
Well, I guess I have questions. Was this for her or her staff? Because this was a FEC complaint issued by this watchdog group. And I mean, did people have to do ketamine to work for AOC? I guess really that's the question at this point. I think there's a lot of things that they need to be looking into here. I mean, you have a psychiatrist out of Boston, very random.
I remember like back in the 90s, like the good old Democrats, they were like, I smoked weed, but I didn't inhale. Now AOC's like, we did ketamine with my campaign donations, and it's okay to go to Epstein. Jeez. Well, anyway, Cliff, Democrats though, they may be pivoting from their alphabet community, which I never thought I'd see, but some top Democrats are quietly debating whether their party's best bet for winning back the presidency in 2028 is to nominate a straight, white Christian man.
Tim Walz should be the example that they can look at, and they can prove not only is that not the right strategy, but it's the fact that the guy has now stepped down from office. He's not running again, right? They've already tried this. And so Democrats have to figure out one thing that worked in 2024 for Republicans: authenticity.
Yeah.
Stop trying to create these political characters that you're putting in some sort of consultant script. Have some authenticity, come up with real solutions, talk to Americans, earn their vote. That's what they need to be focused on.
This is way too complex, Cliff. We're going to have to take it down a notch here. Britain, I talked about them earlier, Ashley, may be doomed. A white woman complains that Muslims aren't moving to the countryside because of dogs. Roll this.
Is dogs. And actually, this isn't just about the fact that a lot of Muslims find dogs very difficult.
Now you have the BBC pushing some anti-dog propaganda. Watch this.
But people who are allergic to dogs or afraid of them say that the rise of these dog-friendly spaces is a concern.
That's not what. Look, if I lived in Great Britain right now, I would be clearing out the ASPCA. I would make 101 Dalmatians look like amateur hour.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, Britain has a major problem going on over there. But if you're looking at the countryside, well, what's over there? The Cotswolds. That's where the richest people in England live. It would be like saying, hey, we're going to go put Muslims next to Kim Kardashian's house, because that's really the richest part. Everyone has countryside homes there. I believe Ellen DeGeneres and her wife actually moved there to get away from Donald Trump and everyone. So, I guess California wasn't good enough. LA with Gavin Newsom. So they moved to the Cotswolds. But don't worry, Ellen DeGeneres. There's no Muslims there.
No.
Because there's dogs.
None at all. All right. Ashley Cliff, pleasure as always. Hoping to get in too much trouble with that one. All right, coming up, an African nation calling for the extradition of Ilhan Omar over Vice President Vance's fraud claims. I say, let's go.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Stop. Check this out. Our most advanced performance frame, Talon, is out. It's a bestseller. We just got it back in stock, and I want to show you a little bit about it. This frame is an 8-base wrap, so it's going to sit close to your face, give you wide peripheral vision, stay on tight, but it also has a squared off lens for a versatile everyday look. And then you have comfort fit adjustable rubber nose pads for secure fit as well. These come with our signature lost and broken protection, and you can try them risk-free for 30 days. Check them out at shadyrays.com.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that, no needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. No mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, neither of us have any kind of sickness, and we're as flexible as we were 30 years ago, and we still do the physical things we did 30 years ago. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you. You won't believe it. Immuno 150 is an awesome nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it.
Yes, it really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order online or call the number listed on the screen, but don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website. Thank you from both of us, and God bless.
All right, in case you missed it, earlier today, our Newsmax CEO Chris Ruddy sat down with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, asking him about the sluggish poll numbers for the Iran conflict, asking Netanyahu what he thinks about is the single most important reason to let Trump finish the job. Roll it.
Because you can't let a regime that is fanatic, composed of fanatic zealots who want to destroy America to have their way. You have to weaken them as strongly as you can to prevent them from having intercontinental ballistic missiles with nuclear weapons that could destroy your cities and destroy America. That's a pretty good reason to act.
So I watched that interview, and it leaves the question, does America and Israel actually have the same objectives right now? Host of Savage Nation, Michael Savage himself. Sir, all right, fair question, because one has said we want a short-term conflict, and one has said that there might be a long-term conflict.
The American people are not sold on this war. I'm sorry, the polls are not all false. And the majority oppose this war. It's a 60-40 against the war.
I agree.
Especially since Trump told us in America that the last huge bombing mission, the B-1s, the B-2s, took out their nuclear facilities. That's what we were told in the last year. Now, the fact is, this is not a popular war. It's a very unpopular war, especially amongst the conservative people in America. It's not only the left that opposes this war. People are freaking out. Mr. Trump ran as an anti-war president. We both know that. I backed him in 2016. I said we need a businessman, not a politician. War is bad for business. Donald Trump knows that. He doesn't want war. He said he would end the war between Ukraine and Russia. It wouldn't have happened if he was president, and the war is still going on. People are being butchered. That hasn't ended. Now we have a new one emerging, the Iran war. People are freaking out over this, and I think that the faster it's over, the better it is for America, frankly, and I don't think I'm alone, Carl. Now, you may disagree with me.
No, I completely agree with you.
I mean, I've seen all sides of this.
Yeah.
And I'm just not buying Netanyahu's argument, to be frank with you. Why must we fight? What's happening here is anti-Semitism is surging in America, especially amongst the right, which is very worrisome. As an American Jew, I have never seen such hatred for Jews online as I've seen now. It seems to me like it's 1930s Germany. And it's not just coming from the people you would expect it coming from. It's awful.
Yeah, I mean, look, this, this aside, in this case, there are a lot of times where, people have said horrible things on these campuses, but at the end of the day, I mean, this war is something that has, nothing to do with anti-Semitism, but everything to do with, do the goals of the two countries align? And I think right now that's starting to diverge.
Israel is a tiny little speck of land surrounded by a lot of Muslim nations, and that unto itself is not our problem.
But they asked us to help.
Well, help what? Send boots on the ground and see American boys come home in caskets? No, absolutely not. This would be a disaster for America, certainly. And it would certainly not help Israel have any more friends in the world. So I don't know what Israel has to do right now, but I know America needs to get out of there as fast as possible, I think as far as I'm concerned.
We both agree on that. Here's something I guarantee you.
I'm glad we do. I didn't know we would.
Yeah, look, I'm not a war person. If we go to war, you better do it hard and fast. Otherwise, it's not worth fighting anymore. I was in Iraq for too long doing that stuff. I want to get to J.D. Vance doubling down the saying he's going to potentially look into Ilhan Omar, and he thinks she committed immigration fraud, and now looking at building a case against her in the tiny little nation of Somaliland, which, to be clear, it's different from Somalia. It's stepping in and is ready to help extradite her. There's an unofficial X account posting, "Deportation, please. You're just sending the princess back to her kingdom. Extradition, say the word." They're really excited about it. I'm really excited about it. Maybe we just send her.
The best article on her fraudulent background is in the Gateway Pundit, which came up the other day. Ilhan Omar's father was top propaganda official in genocidal Somalian Bahri regime. Then he changed his and her name and entered the U.S. illegally. It's an astonishing piece of investigative journalism. She is a gangster. She's a criminal. She came here fraudulently. She needs to go, and every nickel she stole needs to be taken back from her and her rotten family. It's a shocking story that people have to read in the Gateway Pundit. There's so much more to it. They entered the country illegally. They changed their name illegally. They took the name of the Omar family, which was not their family name. The genetic family name is Saeed. They used false names to apply for asylum as members of the Omar family. They got asylum here. The other half of the family got asylum in the United Kingdom. This is a gangster family as far as this article exposes. It's shocking, actually shocking. And she's a sitting member of Congress.
Yeah.
But the biggest part of this to me is that in addition to the money and whatever else they got out of this country, she doesn't shut her mouth in hating America and Americans. How stupid can she be?
She hates
Did
it.
she learn from the liberals? The best defense is a good offense, and keep calling everyone a racist? Is that her game?
That's what she does. But anyway, we got to leave it there. Michael Savage, I'll put her down for a definite maybe for your Christmas party. Make sure you check out his show, 8 p.m. right here on Newsmax. Michael Savage. All right, before we go,
thanks, Carl.
Far left Canadians get together and crazy stuff happens. Next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
I have a structured settlement, and I need cash now. Call J.G. Wentworth, 877-CASH now.
I am an annuity, but I need cash now.
Call J.G. Wentworth, 877-CASH now.
It's your money. Use it when you need it.
Call J.G. Wentworth, 877-CASH. 877 cash now.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now, you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen. This little box changed my life. I can now do all those things that I want to do.
The Inogen creates portable oxygen from the air around you. When you have an Inogen, live life on the go.
I love this. And I love my Inogen because it lets me see this.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Give us a call right now. We'll answer all your questions. We'll send you an information guide, and if you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free.
I took a 10-day, 3,000-mile road trip with my trusty Inogen. I always call it my trusty Inogen. I do trust it.
This gives me the oxygen that the doctor prescribed for me.
You can continue to drag heavy and awkward oxygen tanks when you leave the house, or use the latest in medical technology to get the oxygen your doctor prescribed anytime you leave home. So give us a call. Try an Inogen system of your very own for 30 days, risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
This Inogen really works. You got to get off the couch and get one.
Wouldn't you rather have this than a tank? Really?
Pick up the phone, call the Inogen company. They're going to take care of you.
Call 1-800-606-1546 or visit Inogen.com.
We age because our cells do. Fatty 15 reverses aging at the cellular level.
And I find this is the one supplement that has helped me get the results I want.
Fatty 15 has over 36 cellular benefits to support your health. Use code TV for 15% off at fatty15.com.
Leaf Filter is America's #1 gutter protection system.
Yeah, because it's built right.
We didn't just take our word for it.
I didn't. I went to an install. I saw how it was built. I took it apart.
Then you know, Leaf Filter is designed to keep debris out of your gutters and water flowing. And you get a lifetime guarantee.
When it's built right, it shows. That's why it's Homes approved.
It's good to be #1.
Always.
Schedule your free gutter inspection today. Call 877-77-HOMES or visit leaffilter.com/homes.
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
Just when you thought Canadians couldn't get much worse, this is the Democrats' dream of parliamentary decorum.
Hello, I was standing here with my gender equity card before you called on the previous speaker. That's my point of privilege that I would like to raise.
I will explain the speaking order, which is fixed, that I cannot amend, which is the pro-con rotation.
This card was used in an inappropriate manner. And while I understand in Ontario we know this is equity, even if that, this was also used inappropriately in terms of gender.
This is Canada's Democrat Party Leadership Committee this month. It is masks and keffiyehs and cards of points of privilege and, equity race to the bottom, Rob.
The chick with the keffiyeh on talking about her gender equity card. Take that card to the country where the keffiyeh came from and watch how fast they pummel you into the ground and throw you in prison or throw you off a building. The idiocy is boundless. I love it.
Good to be back.
Carl, good to see you, brother. All right.